The book felt like a rapid-fire series of enormous philosophical questions, presented almost one after the other, like PKD's just like hurling fruit at you to catch and juggle and munch on simultaneously. And the process is increasingly chaotic, right? Like he's saying, catch, catch, catch. And you're there like trying to juggle all of this, and he's like, now how does all this work together? And you can only respond with, I don't know, but I like fruit. Better than food, man. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Get that coffee. Delicious. From Peru. Just like the country. Say it! Today is the Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch by the American author Philip K. Dick, published in 1964. This was kindly gifted to me by my friend and patron Rob. Thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it. On his little gift note, he wrote, I hope you enjoy your trip into the mind of PKD. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about the story. And buddy, trip is the right word. That is what this book is. One hell of a trip. To be expected from PKD, I suppose. I'm embarrassed to admit this is the first book I've read from the highly revered science fiction novelist Philip K. Dick, henceforth known in this review as PKD. Well known for his novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, upon which the film Blade Runner is based, as well as The Man in the High Castle, A Scanner Darkly. He's a tremendously influential science fiction novelist. The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch is a strange, complex, yet in a narrative sense relatively straightforward, speculative fiction, interplanetary, metaphysical, psychedelic, corporate thriller mystery. Oh god, another one? Jeez. Oh, I forgot, it's also a psychological mindfuck body horror parable. It ain't boring. It's an unpredictable blend of madness and coherence, lucid and bonkers. Like an existentially philosophical episode of Looney Tunes. A twisted amalgam of many things that somehow congeal into a single novel. You really gotta try this one out. And if you'd like a one-of-a-kind edition with a special historical significance, please check out the incredible edition for sale by the sponsor of today's video, The Rare Book Sleuth. The Rare Book Sleuth is a rare and antiquarian book dealer based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, specializing in first editions, signed copies, and notable rarities. They offer a variety of professional services including curation, collection development, and appraisal. And they're selling an amazing first UK edition, a publisher's file copy, of Philip K. Dick's The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. And the cover is wild, you've gotta see it, for real. That is so rad. This edition is terrific, I mean look at it. And the rest of their inventory is outstanding as well. For example, currently they've got a first edition of Infinite Jest signed by David Foster Wallace, a first edition of The Crossing signed by Cormac McCarthy, I really want that, a first edition of Carrie signed and inscribed by Stephen King, and much more. They even have a signed first edition of Virginia Woolf's On Being Ill. Signed Virginia Woolf's must be very rare. I've also personally spoken with the owner, Kevin himself. He's a very nice guy. A stand-up gentleman who knows his books. So be sure to click on their link in the description or comments below, or head on over to rarebookssleuth.com to check them out. You can also find them on Instagram at rarebookssleuth, where they showcase a ton of their cool books. And thank you so much to the Rare Book Sleuth for sponsoring the show. So what on earth, or otherwise, is this book about? Well, in the future, Earth has become insanely hot, inhabitable only by technological means. Humans have colonized Mars, living below the surface in what they call hovels. It's an unenviable existence. All the colonists, who are there only because of a draft, are addicted to candy, right? Something referred to in the book as a translation drug. These drugs that allow you to access a different reality. It allows them to temporarily inhabit the layout, like this model of an environment, of these dolls, Perky Pat and Walt Essex. They're like Barbie and Ken dolls, right? A glamorous escape back to Earth from tilling the red soil. Literally, they're making gardens on the surface of Mars. It's not going so well. It's a rough life. But it's actually like they're transferred into this whole simulated reality. It's like real physical life, as these characters, roaming around San Francisco back on Earth. The drug is very popular and successful. Barney Mayerson, the novel's main protagonist, is an Earth-based precog, as in precognitive, a psychic consultant at the corporation that produces and sells candy named Perky Pat Layouts. They also produce the layouts, right? The drug is technically illegal, but they have some sort of working relationship with the authorities. Perky Pat Layouts, known in the book as PP Layouts, is run by Mayerson's boss, Leo Bolero. A mysterious industrialist named Palmer Eldritch arrives back from another solar system, bringing with him a new drug to compete with Can-D, something he calls Chew-Z, a whole different beast. A drug that puts you in a completely different reality from Can-D, wherein you can choose, Chew-Z, right, the elements within it. You can cultivate your own reality. You can manifest whatever you want. But there's something insidious about this new drug. I don't want to give away too much. As the story progresses, it becomes an insane stack of alternate realities. And for the characters, determining which reality they're in, whether the real one or the simulated one, becomes challenging. In a bewildering but engaging narrative, the book felt like a rapid-fire series of enormous philosophical questions, presented almost one after the other, like PKD's just like hurling fruit at you to catch and juggle and munch on simultaneously. And the process is increasingly chaotic, right? Like he's saying, catch, catch, catch. And you're there like trying to juggle all of this, and he's like, now how does all this work together? And you can only respond with, I don't know, but I like fruit. And so you just go with it. Yet, somehow it's a seamless progression from one idea to the next. Easily traceable in this narrative context, not at all easily grappled with in terms of conclusive understanding. PKD's intention seems to have been to trigger a series of questions for which there are no definitive answers. I prefer this in novels. It's philosophy, philosophical speculation in the form of speculative fiction. PKD is able to suspend disbelief because of the emotional relatability of his characters. Their inner life is convincingly written and believable. Their outer life resembles something chaotically and comically foreign. By using this juxtaposition, PKD delivers an incredibly unique experience, at once both strange and familiar. The plot thickens and it thickens more until you're in a morass of alternate dimensions and unreliable realities. A psychological series of Matryoshka dolls. But which is the original? The ball is not necessarily hard to follow, but the path is rapid and ontologically perplexing. Are they there or are they somewhere else? But that's the fun of it, Barney and a character named Anne actually discuss ontology in the book. It seems that PKD uses the speed of events as a method for maintaining believability. As if he was thinking while writing it, to slow down would be risky in a story like this. Better to just keep hitting us with fruit, And PKD outlines these ideas very clearly. He's not trying to be opaque, he's writing to be understood. While occasionally comical, the book is concerned with the nature of reality, being, the relationship of the self to others, sacrifice, suffering, death, fate, and God. Maybe love too. While it has a sci-fi coating, the questions are eternal. New coat of paint on a classic car. What does it mean when you live to escape your life, the world you inhabit? When you try as hard as you can to run from the way things are, from the truth? When you try to ditch fate, right? That seems to be the question PKD is primarily concerned with in this book. The story seems to be about the desire to control fate, to avoid the ravages of time, to avoid suffering and death, to escape the truth. You can see this in all the main characters, Barney, Leo, Eldritch, as well as the Mars colonists, minor characters. This overwhelming desire to control things that time or God have put in motion. To have the control of God, right? To have control over your fate. To be free. To have ultimate freedom, basically. The added complexity of the narrative occurs when those who are seeking to avoid suffering or death are able to evade it, or think they're able to evade it, by entering other realities via drugs. It's a hell of a setup. The colonists on Mars use a drug to escape their dismal reality. Barney uses a drug to try and repair his failed marriage that resulted from his callous mistakes, and Palmer uses a drug to try and become immortal. So I think PKD is using these variations on a theme as a way to show us the powerful will within us all, to use any means necessary to avoid that which we know is coming, but find undesirable, death, or that which we experience in the present as intolerable, suffering. In Barney's case, it's a story of deep, permanent regret and the self-destructive will from the desire for control. Take the nature of Choose Z. Total control over your reality. As PKD writes, solipsistic. Barney is haunted by what he's done to his ex-wife in an act of solipsistic selfish careerism. When you make a choice, you are choosing one reality. You are also destroying many others if they exist. And of course, when you realize it was the wrong decision, you can't go back. You can't turn back time. There are no do-overs, and that can slowly erode your psyche. That guilt, right? I think that's what this book is about. The irreparable mistake of choosing the wrong reality. The irreparable mistake of sacrificing your reality and the people in it, which you may not know is in fact preferable to your desire for control, for a reality you think you want, but when you receive it is tremendously disappointing. A major irony about this book, which is discussed in it, is that the main character is a psychic. He can see the future, and yet he still suffers from his actions. That's a very compelling element. I think PKD writing about a psychic who still wants to take Choose Z emphasizes the power of the drug and also the pervasiveness of the problems we all face as humans. In this case, even those who can see into the future. That was a clever move by PKD. Everyone has regrets in their life. What if a drug like Choose Z could allow you to change the past, or give you the illusion at least, to see how things could have been different? Let you find out what that would look like. Or what if a drug like Candy could allow you to, as the Martian colonist character Fran says in the book, lose the weight of sin? What could be more addictive? But also, what if the experience of a drug only gave you the illusion of control? What if instead of you controlling it, or someone, or something, was controlling you? You'd be entering, to use an important word PKD uses in the novel, a trap. So this is what PKD is driving at. Our need for total control, and to sacrifice others for our own perceived gain, in our attempts to escape the weight of our failures, our mistakes, or our fate, is a trap. It's about things that seem good or desirable, but in fact are not. It's about self-deception and regular deception. Traps. Traps everywhere. The drugs are false idols. But how can one escape the traps? Can one escape the traps? In the book, the character Richard Nat has an idea. Let's see what he says. When he's becoming evolved, as the book puts it. I'll let you find out. Below lay the tomb world, the immutable cause and effect world of the demonic. At meeting extended the layer of the human, but at any instant a man could plunge, descend as if sinking, into the hell layer beneath. Or he could ascend to the ethereal world above, which constituted the third of the trinary layers. Always in his middle level of the human, a man risked the sinking. And yet the possibility of ascent lay before him. Any aspect or sequence of reality could become either at any instant. Hell and heaven, not after death, but now. Depression, all mental illness, was the sinking. And the other, how is it achieved? Through empathy, grasping another, not from outside, but from the inner. This line from the book When the Heroes are Fighting Palmer Eldritch caught my eye. Who gets sacrificed, Leo asked himself. Willing sacrifice seems to be PKD's answer. Spiritual, emotional, and if necessary, physical. Which is a very Christian notion. That's the story of Jesus, right? And PKD was a Christian. I suppose it's all in the title, right? The 3 stigmata. Eldritch's stigmata are... I'll let you find out. The stigmata portion of the book reminded me of Being John Malkovich. Yeah, you'll see. In the book, PKD makes heavy use of religious symbolism, comparing the drug use to the Eucharist or communion. It's interesting. Communion, communication, translation, talking, translating drugs, right? When you take candy or chew Z, you're in communion with something. With candy, you're in communion with other people. Candy seems far more neutral. With chew Z, it's... yeah, you're in communion with that which is not God. With this book, PKD seems to be saying searching for God is risky business. What if you found him? Or like Barney and Ann discuss in the book, what if you found something like God? But unfortunately, not. AI may be overhyped, but if it isn't, you and I very well may discover the answer to that question. God forbid. As PKD explains in an interview I've linked below in Metz, France, he was inspired by non-science fiction novels, by authors such as Flaubert and Balzac. So PKD writes novels that combine the mass appeal of futuristic sci-fi worlds, incorporating existential and philosophical themes, inspired by literary realism and social realism. But like this article from Salon by Eric Davis says I've linked below, PKD was also a big fan of Lovecraft, the opposite of realism. As Davis reveals to us, Eldritch is a Lovecraftian reference. So PKD is a very compelling literary melange, right? He's taking stuff from all over. He's like opposite sides of the spectrum fused. Again, in that interview linked below, he also mentions the heavy influence of Kafka in The Trial. There's a heavy sense of paranoia in PKD's fiction, as there was in his life. It seemed like he may have had a persecution complex. Whether he had real reason to be paranoid in his life, I'm not sure. But he certainly thought so. Reminds me of the Joseph Heller quote in Catch-22, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't after you. But then, PKD also struggled with mental illness and addiction. I'm not an expert and it's my first time reading him. Some of the paranoia could be justified, some of it not. Maybe both. I'll go into his biography more in another review. I'm not sure I've read a book with such complex layers of reality, delivered in such a lucid, comprehensible fashion. It would be very easy to complicate this. Very easy. It seems like it must have been very difficult to simplify. Thankfully, I've never experienced a false awakening, a dream wherein you wake up into another dream, in this nightmarish cycle that goes on and on. But from the descriptions I've heard of them, that's very much what this book seemed like. A false awakening in novel form. What is real? What is reality? How much of you is you? How much of the person you're looking at is them? And how do you know? It is a product of the 60s, so many of the era's concerns pervade the narrative. Drug use, the draft, space travel. This was written pre-moon landing, right? So it was in the ether. What I love about the book is PKD's portrayal of timeless human thoughts, desires, and emotions within a futuristic dystopian landscape. The terrain changes, the outer world transforms, technology progresses radically, life extends, yet the inner world is the same experienced by you and I. The powers to be are corrupt, life is increasingly insane, escape is futile, so escapism is critical. In spite of being far into the future, it's a world you and I can easily relate with. Reading the news lately has been kind of like reading a Philip K. Dick novel, and I don't think that's a good sign. I do not. No. And if you're struggling with the modern world, I get it. I am too. It's very important to take care of our mental health these days, and there are tools to help with that. Some of my preferred tools would be exercise, getting enough sleep, eating properly, reading. Another tool is therapy, which is why I'd like to tell you about the other sponsor of today's video, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make finding therapy more affordable and accessible, which is helpful because finding the right therapist can be challenging given the slim options in your area, especially if you live somewhere rural or in a small town or if you travel for work. But unlike many things these days, they make finding a therapist easy. Because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions online, BetterHelp can match you with a therapist in as little as just a few days. And it's easy to get matched with a therapist. There's a link below in the description. It's betterhelp.com/BTF. Clicking on that link helps support the show, but it also gets you 10% off your first month with BetterHelp, so you can try them out and see if it works for you. And I sincerely hope it does. And because finding the right therapist is a little like dating, if you don't initially fit with your therapist, which is a common thing in therapy, you can switch to a new therapist at any time at no additional cost, without having to worry about health insurance or who's in your network or anything like that. So if you're struggling right now, and let's face it, who isn't? Please consider online therapy with BetterHelp. And thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring the show. In the book, when the Martian colonists Fran and Sam are experiencing Candy together, which places you in San Francisco, she says, "We should try to obtain as much from this as possible. Our time is short enough as it is. At least so it seems to me." She smiled wanly. "So drive as fast as you can. I want to get to the ocean." I put down the book and was like, oh my god. Because this is what's happening right now, that's it. It's the desire for an experience of a simulation. The urgent need for an artificial life because your day-to-day reality is mundane, it's painful. It's the phones, it's the internet, right? And it's all made possible in this world by drugs. Yet another thing our society is contending with, another escape, another route out of day-to-day living. And I'm part of it, not that I'm on drugs. I'm part of the collective desiring escapism. It's the artificial life of social media, curated and controlled, accessed by getting online. Candy is more immersive, but given what's coming, will soon probably not be unrecognizable. And it just rips your heart out because in that line in the book, drive as fast as you can, I want to get to the ocean. That's the urgency of modern life we're all experiencing, as our money is devalued and our time expires day by day. It's vicious. It's true. Right? It's like that's what it is. This collective desperation. The desperation and urgency of trying to enjoy a modicum of desirable experience between brutalist blocks of concrete schedules. This is the modern Western condition. He's nailed it, right? There's never enough time, which is a problem Chu Z seeks to solve, as it stretches a second out into millennia. Of course, that comes with its own problems, as illustrated in the book. Overall, I enjoyed my first Philip K. Dick book very much. Better than food. 4 out of 5 coffees. Highly recommended. A very strange book, but I enjoyed it. It's a little exhausting to orient yourself, but that's also the appeal. I was very impressed. So what did I dislike? Well, perhaps it's because PKD tried to pack so much into a short novel. The religious philosophical conversations felt a little awkward or stilted at points. Might have felt a little forced sometimes. That's just my initial gut instinct after the first read. I might feel differently upon a second read, I might discover that it flowed better than I thought. Reminded me a bit of the film Waking Life. Mostly it works. Sometimes I had the feeling it was a bit forced, but there was no option for PKD. He had to explain himself. It was a trap. And initially I was turned off by the goofy 60s language. Like Perky Pat, what the fuck? I found myself wondering how I was going to sit through a novel that was meant to be taken seriously using such a name. But I kept going and I was pleasantly surprised. I actually found myself looking up words every so often. PKD has a spectacular vocabulary, but he uses it minimally for narrative flow. And the result is a very balanced reading experience, both entertaining and intellectual. Thought-provoking yet rapidly paced, never sacrificing narrative tempo for intellectual digression, but then also never sacrificing stimulating, ideas for sci-fi entertainment value. Again, it's balanced. The result is a fast-paced, intellectually provocative, deeply bizarre reading experience. With goofy language. It is a product of the 60s. So you should read it. I'd say if you're into Kafka, Thomas Pynchon, William S. Burroughs, William Gibson, and Frank Herbert, run, don't walk, and grab yourself a copy of this. And I hope you love it. And with that, coffee time. For those of you who are new, thank you very much for stopping by and watching the show. I take all of the names of the patrons who are financially supporting the show on Patreon, I place their names in this mason jar, and for every review, I pull out a name. And whoever's name I pull out, I sent a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing, plus a bag of coffee, roasted by yours truly. And the coffee is delicious. Trust me, I'm a complete snob. It's currently from Brazil. If you would like to get in on that and help support the show, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. You can click on the link below or go to patreon.com/books are better than food, and the tiers start at $5 per video. I make about 3 to 4 videos a month. However, if you're on a budget, you can set a monthly limit and you'll still get access to all the content. In addition, for becoming a paid patron, you'll get access to all this cool stuff. And international shipping is included. However, unfortunately, I can't send coffee to the UAE or Qatar. Thank you very much to all my patrons for helping me keep this thing going. It really means a lot. And best of luck. Okay, here we go. David W. Thank you very much, David. Really appreciate it. You're going to receive The 3 Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch by Philip K. Dick, plus a bag of coffee, roasted by yours truly, and I hope you love both. Cheers. Please subscribe if you have not already, and hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and click the little notifications bell so I don't get lost in the alternate algorithm reality. And please always remember, die reading. Alright, great to see you as always. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.